If you don't understand the complexity and difficulty of golf, you will set unrealistic goals. If you don't have patience and persistence, you will not reach your goals. One of the foundations you must have is to understand that golf is one of, if not the hardest sports to play. A commitment to improve requires a commitment to practice. If you were learning to play the piano, you would certainly practice on a regular basis. Learning the piano requires repetition of certain movement patterns with the fingers. In a 30-minute practice session at the piano, you could move your fingers on the keyboard for at least 25 minutes. If you played golf once a week and hit a large bucket of balls 3 times a week, you would have swung at the ball less than 8 minutes a week. The physical movements in golf are certainly more complex than the piano and requires at least as many repetitions until the movement is grooved and learned. But with golf, reaching the required number of repetitions is almost impossible to obtain. If you practice the piano for only 8 minutes a week, you certainly wouldn't become a concert pianist. How much should you practice your driving? Well, how many fairways do you expect to hit? The professionals average from 50 to 75%. It would not be reasonable for any amateur to have a goal of 75%. 50% would be more than reasonable. Most amateurs are closer to the reasonable driving goals than any other part of their game, and would only need minimal driving practice to maintain that average. For most golfers, only 15% of your shots on the course will be from the driver. Therefore, only about 15% of your practice time should be with the driver. How much should you practice with the irons? What is your goal for greens in regulation? Is it reasonable? The average player on tour is hitting about 66% of the greens in regulation. Now, if you hit 50% of the greens, you're doing pretty well. For some of you, even 40% should be your first goal level. Many golfers will only need to devote about 20% of their practice time to hitting approach shots, which is the percent you will hit on the course. How much should you practice your short game in putting? If you're an average golfer who shoots 95 and higher and your next goal is to become a bogey golfer, then you need to practice your short game more. If you are a bogey golfer and your next goal is to become a 10 handicap, then practice your short game more. If you are a 10 handicap and you want to become a scratch golfer, practice your short game more. Do you see where I'm going here? The majority of shots you hit on the course will be short game shots or putting. Practicing the short game must become a priority. Many golfers have heard the phrase, "I can't take it to the course." We typically hit the ball much better at the range than during our round of golf. The main reason for this is our inability to create the same conditions at the range that we face on the course. On the course, every swing has a consequence. At the range, they do not. Golf is one of the few sports without a game and scoring system attached at the entry level or applied to our practice. 2 beginning tennis players can keep score while they play and practice. A 10-year-old can kick their first soccer ball on one day and be playing in a league 2 weeks later. In basketball, there are multiple games you can play when you practice. In most sports, the required skill level is minimal before you can participate in some sort of scoring game when you practice. But in golf, the minimal skill level is very high before you can actually go to the course and play your first game and keep score. If a player kept score while practicing, it not only would be more fun, it would create a consequence for every practice shot. The on-target system has established multiple skill tests to be used during a golfer's practice. These not only can serve as a fun game, creating a consequence for each practice shot, they also serve as a diagnostic tool to identify the weakest part of your game, needing the most attention. These skill tests will be covered later in this series of videos. There are many golfers who only play once a week and have no additional time for practice. They may have a regular game with their buddies every Saturday or with the men's or women's group at their club. I pose the following question. Would you rather play every Saturday and average 90 or play 3 Saturdays a month and average 85? If you are a golfer who would rather play less but shoot lower, then take 1 Saturday a month and invest your time in a serious game improvement practice session. This session would be for several hours, and if possible, a portion would be with your teaching pro. Also, the majority of your time would be working on your short game. This change in your routine will result in lower scores. And the best scenario would be for your entire foursome to practice together. You can help each other and even set up some fun competition. Now your practice has a consequence. Now your practice is more like real golf, and it will be easier to take it to the course. Hitting a few balls for 10 minutes and then go to the tee box is a warm-up, but it is not a warm-up that will prepare you for play. To prepare for a round of golf, you need to give yourself at least an hour so you can practice all the shots of the game, full swing, half swings, chipping, putting, etc. Practice an hour before play will go a long way to preparing you for your round of golf. It would also help you maintain your skills and develop more consistency. But if you want to make a quantum leap in lowering your score, you have to make changes in your core swing. If you want to change your performance, you have to change the way you perform. I invite you to watch the video titled Changing Your Core Swing. To close this video on the fundamentals of practice, I leave you with this. Practice right. Practice right things. Practice with help. Practice.